Hello, family. One of the many enjoyable things about my work is that I get to meet some incredible people and they become friends along the way. This is the case with Elizabeth Vazquez. Now, Elizabeth professionally is known for her excellent leadership of WEConnect. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about her before we begin our talk today. Let me read to you what you'll find about her if you look her up. Elizabeth is well recognized as a name in the global supplier diversity and inclusion space, and WEConnect International, where she is the chair, is the nonprofit organization that she co-founded with member corporations, providing women a platform to sell their goods and services in a global marketplace. Guys, Elizabeth is serving over 165 countries with women suppliers connecting to companies who seek to buy from them. Now, economic empowerment for women impacts local communities, we all know. And so when we look at what Elizabeth is doing, we can consider that over the course of the next year, WEConnect International will track and aggregate and share the results, culminating to a celebration in March 8 on 2022 of all the work they've been doing through COVID. And this is a long-serving organization that has done so much, not only to support women suppliers to get opportunities, but to educate companies on how best to win from this connection. As Elizabeth will share with us, you know, the value proposition for doing business with women is incredible. So it's a wonder that we represent less than 1% of total procurement in some areas. Also, women are a primary decision maker in most goods and services sold throughout the globe. So she's doing work to help correct what she thinks is a gap and error in this environment. Elizabeth also is a wonderful, wonderful friend. And so I'm really excited about you meeting her. She has an incredible backdrop, guys. I got to tell you about it because, you know, I love what Elizabeth stands for on a lot of levels, but she has a backdrop that I was particularly interested in. See what you think about it. Now, the painting behind her was made by an artist she discovered in an open market in Accra, Ghana, many years ago. And she keeps it behind her, she says, so that she can enjoy it on Zoom calls with people while remembering a happy time of adventure and purpose. And so let's get on purpose and have a really happy time as I talk with my friend and an incredible professional who's leading the way for women business ownership and advancement, Elizabeth Vazquez. Elizabeth, I'm so glad you're joining the family today. You know, my family is a broad spectrum of people and interests, communities, careers. I couldn't think of anybody better to have talked with them right now than you. And your journey here has been a real interesting one. I promised them you were going to share about Elizabeth growing up. Elizabeth, tell us a little bit about how you did grow up, where you grew up, what that was like.
Sure. Thank you, Janice, for being such an amazing friend and leader. I love this opportunity to just have a conversation. So growing up, I was born in Mexico. So my father's Mexican, my mother's American, and they had myself, had my sister, and then my mom decided when I was 3 that it was not a good environment for us. And so she packed us up while my dad was at work one day, and she moved back to the United States to where she was from. And it was somewhat of a precarious journey, but we made it, and we lived with my grandmother for a while. My mom was smart enough to ask for some government help to be able to survive that transition. And we were raised in Arizona. And I learned at a young age that not everyone is welcoming to diverse communities. I didn't really know what that meant, but I knew that being Mexican was not a good thing. Apparently we came home one day from school crying, and My mom asked what was wrong. We said they called us Mexicans, and she said, well, you are. So we stopped crying and went outside and started playing. So,
what part of Mexico is your mom from originally?
So my dad is from Guadalajara, Mexico. My mom's from Arizona.
Ah, okay. So your mom had grown up in Arizona, and you said that's why you guys went back there. You know, she left Mexico to give you opportunity, but going to Arizona certainly created challenges. And I see you every day in your life really addressing that from a professional platform. I think that probably informs a lot about how you approach the many communities you service, because right now WEConnect has a membership that spans across how many countries?
125 countries is the number where the women-owned businesses are based. And of course, the corporations we work with and the multilaterals like the UN and the World Bank, the IMF, they worked all over the world. So it's an exciting time, finally, to be a woman-owned business.
Well, it really is. And I think that you have impacted the ability for women to be in business, not just women who are already in business growing theirs. Can you talk a little bit about, Elizabeth, how WEConnect operates? I really want our listeners to be aware.
So it's interesting. It's a global nonprofit incorporated in the US because there's a US organization called WeBank, Women's Business Enterprise National Council, that was created by really big buyers that want to buy from women in businesses, but it didn't exist outside of the US. So about 12 years ago, the buyers got together and they said, well, if it's good business to buy from women here, let's find ways to find these women in other countries. And so they created WEConnect International, and I got to do the incorporation. And we started in the UK, then Canada, India, China, then Latin America, and then Africa. And it's just expanded from there. So our role is to work with local partners and find women-owned businesses who want to sell into larger markets and develop their capacity to be competitive, certify that they're women-owned businesses, and introduce them to actual buyers. And it turns out they do business with each other. And so having them be a part of a network that you're a part of, you are so inspiring, to show them that this can be done. You can think real big and knock on the right doors and have an equal opportunity to compete for business opportunities. So I feel very fortunate to get to do this work.
I'm going to be asking you a lot more about the services WEConnect provides and how people can join, how people can member to it or sponsor and support, whether they're a woman-owned business or in business or not. But before we do that, I really want to talk about the platform that, or the economic, the social, the financial platform that we find occurring today, and how that is not just impacting women, because most people are realizing that, although certainly that's part of the conversation, but what we need to be doing to move the dial on that. I want to hear from Elizabeth.
So thanks. It's a great question, because I think we can get overwhelmed when we think about inclusive growth, especially at a time of a global pandemic, how to take action in support of your own needs, but also what's happening in the rest of the world, whether it's local or global. It's really important that we stop for a moment and realize how very powerful we are as individuals and leaders of organizations, that we are able to leverage things like our purchasing power, right? So it's an $87 trillion global economy. There's lots and lots of money out there. The question is, why do some communities, women-owned businesses, members of the LGBT community, people with disabilities or differently abled, ethnic minorities, Black-owned businesses, Asian-owned businesses, Middle Eastern-owned businesses, why is it that we continue to be almost invisible as suppliers in these global value chains when we add so much value because we're on the ground, we see the challenges, we experience the challenges, we know how to deliver solutions, and we're flexible and we're hungry for business. So there's just a massive disconnect that the platform that WEConnect has developed in partnership with USAID, SAP Ariba, and several corporations like IBM, Accenture, Procter & Gamble, ExxonMobil, we came together and we said,
Act One Group.
Act One Group, absolutely, absolutely. How do we build a platform where we make it as easy as possible for supply to connect with demand? How do we make the invisible visible? And so now we have an actual technology platform in 10 languages that allows the suppliers and the buyers to come together in one place from all over the world to be able to do business together.
What are those languages that currently you are allowing procurement and meeting to occur?
Yeah, so there's 10 languages. It's all the world's major languages. It's the English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, and then other languages.
Mandarin,
Yeah.
and you've got German. So basically one can go to where to actually find out?
WEConnectInternational.org, and the women-owned businesses can register for free, so they can join the network if they have a business and get to know other members of the community, but also they're able to describe what types of products, what types of services that they offer. They get to access the WEConnect Academy. So we have training modules from experts like you, sharing with them what does it take to knock on the door of big organizations and to compete and to win. So there are a lot of different programs. There's different conferences that we do with our partners, and it's just a great way to sort of demystify how value chains work and how to build assets.
And before we leave this one train of thought, I really want you to correct me or at least expand on it if I'm right. You don't have to be a woman to connect with WEConnect.
That is true, especially if you're a buyer. So if you are looking to source from a woman-owned business, we have an application process so that you can share with us what are your intentions with the data that you're going to have access to. And if it's clear that you're a qualified buyer, usually these are very large organizations, but we're inviting you in to come in and be able to search based on product, service, location, size of company, certified, registered, whatever it is you're looking for, keyword searches, you'll be able to go in and find these women-owned businesses from around the world.
So even if you have an organization you belong to or you head, and you want to be supportive or sponsor activities to help women, then WEConnect can connect you with how to do that if you're not a buyer.
Absolutely. We do work with a lot of different types of sponsors that are looking for maximizing impact. So how do we work together to make sure that the women of the world are starting and growing their businesses and be able to be more competitive? So yes, there's lots of opportunities to collaborate.
Well, the reason I ask that is because as we look at all of the world has for the first time been focused on solving the same problem at the same time. And that's created a whole new set of problems, especially with COVID being a part of the conversation, although certainly finance and economics and social justice have collided along with COVID to the top of everyone's attention. One of the things that's happened is that women have suffered a lot through COVID, whether it's employment or their businesses. And, just to bring us up to speed on this, share your perspective on this, how this has happened and how not just WEConnect, but how the world, communities and individuals need to connect with women to support re-strengthening our communities and building forward.
Yeah, 100%. It is we have to think of this as an opportunity to redesign our systems, how we do business, how we get solutions, whether it's in healthcare or security, any number of areas, technology. I mean, there are literally thousands of ways of looking at rethinking the way we engage, how we build our communities. What's the underlying purpose? I think people are starting to think about, how do we build into this joy, time with our families, the things that really matter. We have to redesign so that everyone has an equal opportunity to benefit, but also to contribute to how we rebuild these systems. And so I think this has been a really precarious and for many devastating year, but it's also forced all of us to reprioritize what it is we're doing and how we're doing it. And I think that rethinking value chains, which is the main way that all of us have access to the stuff and the services that we need. Historically, there's been a lot of emphasis on consolidation and scale, but I think everyone is starting to appreciate the role of local solutions to local problems, and how we ensure that, everyone is pulling their weight, but also everyone is going to benefit. And I think you had mentioned specifically the role of women and how many women are taking themselves out of the workforce so that they can care for their children and care for elderly and others with disabilities, but individuals that need help in their communities. But there's a monetary value to that. And I think we have to start paying for those things that we value, and not just assume that women are going to be able to sustain the free services that we've always been providing. And it's not that men don't also do that. Obviously, we all make contributions, but it's just not sustainable. You see so much burnout. And if you have, half your population burning out and sick and not having the assets that they need and deserve to be prosperous and to help others around them be prosperous, healthy, educated, and strong, then we're all going to suffer. And so I again think that we really have to rethink and use this as an opportunity to rebuild in a way that is a very different, but that reflects the value that everyone is contributing to make the life that we want possible.
Well, I can tell you, back in the days pre-COVID, when I would attend WEConnect conferences or just see you at other organizations, because I don't know how you do it, girl, but you run a huge and successful 100+ country serving organization, and you still manage to show up and support everybody else's NGO that's connected to the values you have. But one of the things that I've seen of you, regardless of where I witnessed it, is that you can think here, but you also can bring it down to the individual level so people understand not only what you're talking about, but how they can serve into it. Give for us an example of how women are adapting, the women in your organization, to not just COVID, but to really the long-standing issues that have existed for them. We get that corporations assist them. We get that WEConnect has set up systems to support them, but you're only doing that because these women are bringing something to the table worth doing that for. Talk with us about how women are doing that from their businesses, maybe from a product business as well as a service business, which can require different types of evolution.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point, that we often talk about women's economic empowerment as if the outsiders are to come in and empower women, right? That the government's going to do this or corporates are going to do this. The truth is, the world needs what women have to offer and other underutilized communities. We need them more than they need us. And that's the bottom line. And so we need all of us to take advantage and leverage all of the amazing ideas and solutions, products or services that women and other underutilized communities have to offer, but we just don't see it. We don't have easy access to it. But once you have awareness and you realize how much purchasing power all of us have and the ability to frankly source from each other, I think then you can really have impact at scale in a very short period of time. And if you take the example of women, and people always say, well, why would you focus on women? They're half the population. They're not a minority. They don't need special help, or they don't have anything special to offer. But if we recognize actually, yes, it's half the population, but in the case of women, and they own a third of the world's businesses, but they make or influence over 80% of the world's purchasing decisions, but they are like 1% of the spend of large organizations, which is a massive, massive market failure that we have to address very quickly, because it means we don't get to benefit from all the amazing things that women are offering. And that's just one group. There are many, and within that group, there are women who are Black-owned businesses, Asian-owned businesses, people who are differently abled, lesbian-owned businesses or transgender businesses. These are all sub-communities that have even, frankly, less access. And that is just a devastating missed opportunity for the world to not benefit from the ideas, the inventions, the challenges that these communities face. Because when you make a building better for a person who is physically disabled, you make it better for all the rest of us to have, better, more secure, more stable solutions within a building, just for example. So more, so I just think that
and not just for you say for all of us. I really want you to hold your point, because I got to share something with you. I have a dear friend, Lorraine Arbus, whose mom worked very, very diligently to get and sponsored. You remember the Jerry Lewis telethon? She was a sponsor of that. She had a child with disabilities. Lorraine had a sister with disabilities. And Lorraine shared with me that the wealth, and they are truly an American success story with respect to wealth. Her family helped to bail Walt Disney out when he needed money. But they're by the ABC Disney connection. Her family was the ABC connection. And she shared with me that they could go anywhere they wanted financially for holidays, but they could only stay at a certain hotel that would let them bring the daughter in a wheelchair, because all the other hotels would say it would be offensive to their guest, or they were ill-equipped for the mobility of the daughter. Now, we're talking about someone in our lifetime who was experiencing this. So very often we forget the histories that propelled us to create the present. And I think giving better attention to the present is how we improve for the future. So I wanted to share with you that, when we think of disabilities, oftentimes we place people in one mindset, but nature has not discriminated about whose family is impacted by a disability. And your statement around we support everyone, we help everyone, boy, is that true. But we don't just help people, we empower people, because one person's disability is no indication to their ability to contribute to the world. And we see this time and time again, and we see it at WEConnect in your women-owned businesses, don't we?
We do. And I think a final point to what you just said with people with different abilities, it's not just the obvious. Just as you said, it's not just physical disabilities. There are mental disabilities. And increasingly at a time when everyone is, facing a global pandemic, you start to recognize that emotional disabilities, people are disabled, not wanting to be able, feeling comfortable to go back to work. That may or may not be a legal disability, but, it's all around us. It's not them. This is all of us being impacted in our families and in our communities. And so the more inclusive we can be, and the more opportunities we can provide to encourage everyone who wants to start and grow a business, to help the rest of the world, have access to those innovations and those solutions, truly the better off we will all be. And I'm just so grateful for the work that Act One does, for example, in making sure that there are placement opportunities for people of all backgrounds, and not just to be tolerant, but to recognize the value of having more choice, with people with different experiences, different histories, different abilities, to be able to contribute and make our organizations better, stronger, more resilient. And I think what COVID has taught us is the importance of resiliency, and people who have been underutilized or undertapped in the world. The fact that they still exist and that they're thriving should tell all of us that they have something special, that in spite of the challenges, they're able to be successful. Those are the people I want to work with.
That is so awesome. And those, by the way, are the people you do work with very often as well. I have often thought of you when the conversation around inclusion comes up. And I've said on several occasions, if you want to experience it, if you want to see it, talk with Elizabeth Vazquez. Here's something else, though, you touched on, and I want you to go back to and maybe dig a little deeper in, and that is the conversation around emotional disability. And you stated well that it is not necessarily a legally recognized disability, but it is having a lot of impact. And whether we're talking about women or whether we're talking about total population, it's impacting us in a lot of places, not just an individual's ability to perform, but it's impacting us a lot. Talk about that a little bit, Elizabeth. You've witnessed that through your through both your corporate sponsors and your women-owned business membership.
Yeah, we actually spent a lot of time surveying and asking questions, right? Just like you do every day. You ask, you listen. What is it that the buyers are going through? What is it that the suppliers are going through? And not assuming what they're going through and offering solutions that may or may not have any relevance to them. So I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in doing this work is you really need to be patient, and you need to ask a lot of questions, and you need to respond, try to anticipate, but that's based on being proactive in listening to your community or those that you serve, because there are certainly going to be things that you didn't think of, and that they're saying, look, this is something that would be helpful. And by the way, I can be a part of that solution. So a lot of what we do is give space to those that we work with, those that we serve, for them to provide the solutions to their own challenges and to connect them. I mean, a lot of it is just connecting and making it easier for those connections to happen. And then it's pretty amazing to watch the magic when supply and demand connects, when it's historically been challenging for that to happen, especially when larger organizations tend to work with larger organizations and smaller work with smaller organizations. Getting everyone comfortable with being uncomfortable becomes part of what I do every day. And I think that's where really true systems changes can happen, because you're getting everyone to think differently about their assumptions and about the art of the possible when we rethink and redesign. I just find it to be a lot of fun, and it can be scary, right? Because it's exposing yourself to situations and to people and to big, hairy challenges that can seem really overwhelming. But at the end of the day, we're just people, right? We're all just people trying to figure out how to do right by our families and our communities. And when we have that clarity of mutual respect and understanding, and can be supportive of each other to thrive, then, really great things can happen.
And I love that you said that, because you referenced a little bit about supply chain, and it's a perfect example of proof of your last statement. There were lots of clients to small companies or women-owned businesses, diverse-owned businesses, who thought that they were going to have tremendous failure because of COVID, as they experienced failure in supply chain amongst their larger suppliers. I will tell you that as a customer to women-owned businesses of different sizes, as well as a woman-owned business providing to larger companies and smaller companies, I noticed that there were many instances that, in particular, because these businesses were scaled as they were, or were not scaled as they weren't, that they were able to be quickly responsive. They were able to deliver in emergency, but importantly, they were able to rethink how supply chain needed to work. There weren't as many parts to the girth of the decision around emergency. Your organization had women who performed in this way dynamically, yes?
As much as the women were negatively impacted, and they were. I mean, when we survey them every quarter since COVID started, and without a doubt, the vast majority had negative impacts in terms of, customers, in terms of their own value chains and the raw materials they source, or the people that they hire, and having them be able to, come into work or be able to work from home. There were significant challenges, but there were an equal number of positive stories where the women were able to so quickly pivot and so quickly say, well, I can't get masks, but I can make them. And yes, that has nothing to do with what I do in my business, but I will make masks because I need my people to be safe. And I want my community to be able to get from where we are today to where we need to be in a very uncertain time. And even though that's not my core competency, I will learn it and I will make it my core competency. So the number of women-owned businesses that were creating hand sanitizers, that were creating personal protection gear, that were creating new infrastructure and logistics support was incredible. And we had so many of our corporate members who frankly couldn't get PPE from their traditional sources, who turned to our database of women-owned businesses who were suddenly producing at scale, locally, regionally, globally, all the things that they needed. And it was instant. I mean, it was fascinating to see how they stepped up. I mean, I just got a call from one of our largest corporate members last week who said, look, our people in India, and it's a significant percentage of their workforce, they need help and their communities need help. How many businesses can you introduce us to right now? They're based in Europe, who can get things to India. I said, okay, well, here's the list and here's all that they produce, but wouldn't you also like to have a list of women in India that could deliver tomorrow, and businesses in Bangladesh and businesses in Pakistan and businesses in Sri Lanka? And they said, yeah, I mean, great that you could help us because our headquarters in Europe, but yes, we would also love them to get it there now. So yes, if you have that. So, and they did, and they're delivering. I mean, they were able to make instant purchase orders with suppliers that could instantly deliver these products and services. And just to, in such a short period of time, see how everyone is coming together and being thoughtful about what they offer and who they get it from is really, really rewarding and encouraging.
And how we pay people. I know that throughout the day, whether you're on social media or network or cable, there were many messages in the LA area and many communities reminding people to use local businesses, help them sustain through this. The value that many of the larger supply chain delivery companies offered was incredible and essential to so many of us. However, there were a lot of opportunities to get things locally that needed to be taken advantage of. And these decisions made by families and individuals were many of the decisions that helped to keep many of your women-owned businesses in business, yes?
100%. I mean, everyone's openness, and in many cases, desperation, right? They had to pivot. Like everyone used to think, oh, I'm better off I'm going with the big companies. And that's still true. There's still huge benefits because there's consistency, there's quality, but there's an assurance that you know what you're getting. Having said that, we were all forced to give everyone a break and everyone a chance to try to, get to us the things that we needed, from toilet paper, right, to other types of just day-to-day produce and things that we sort of took for granted. And then all of a sudden we'd have access.
And let's be clear, taking it to the very basic level, there were some women-owned businesses I knew of, at least 2 of them, who started to reintroduce the idea of reusable, washable items like we use toilet paper or sanitary pads for. I think the sanitary pads really took off in terms of rewashable because they connected it to the hygiene and the environment. So we're having a real conversation. We're talking that it got as real as that for many companies, but for many communities, that became an essential because it wasn't whether or not those companies could get the products. It was where they lived when they lived in local and rural communities.
100%, because when girls and women don't have access to sanitary pads and other solutions, sometimes they don't go to school.
Right.
And so it is a real challenge with real opportunities. And you have so many amazing women entrepreneurs coming up with all kinds of solutions around the world, where we need to keep these girls in school. We need people feeling clean and comfortable to go to work. And so it is a fundamental issue that had to be addressed very quickly. And increasing.
One young lady, Elizabeth, I have to tell you how creative, because I believe she's a member of WEConnect. I can't start doing ads for people, but people can certainly Google and find products by keywords. One young lady who does produce those reusable pads, her key selling points were all you need is water and sunlight to keep it going. And, we can get very comfortable in our new century thinking about what we need. But her point was, if you need a pad with my pads, all you need is water and sunlight to keep it going. And then she had little commercials about, oh, by the way, while you're out there hanging it to dry, get a little bit of that vitamin D. It helps with prevention of COVID. It helps with clearing of COVID. Very creative, very real, very basic, quite dynamic.
Yeah, I think that it goes back to your point that when you allow communities that historically didn't have access to offer their solutions, we completely miss out on some really fundamental basic stuff that all of us, in rethinking what we really need and how much can be recycled. I mean, just all the materials of various types of materials that we have out there, we have so much stuff. And now I think there's a movement, especially the young folks are showing us how to repurpose almost everything. And it just makes things more sustainable, but it also creates business opportunities. And that's really, really exciting because there are so many places, especially in developing countries, where they've literally become our dumping ground for the wealthier countries.
And where if all you need is water and sunlight, you may get the sunlight, but sometimes you can't get the water.
And that's a huge issue. Women's access to clean water and energy, especially because women tend to be the ones that are preparing meals and other things for the family and spending a lot of their time finding clean water sources, finding fuel sources. It can be very precarious, literally physically dangerous, as well as just a huge time suck. Where they can't be productive because they're having to focus on these very basic things. And so
it
I
puts
think
them at risk. Oftentimes they make a decision collectively in a community about who's going to get water. We're not talking about turning on a tap. We're talking about women who actually have to go get the water and tote and carry the water back home, and make decisions that are impacted by that around childcare, or as you mentioned, school-age children who are stronger than mom, able to go get water. Water is a big part of the discussion beyond whether you're drinking, washing, or cooking with it.
Water, peace and security, personal security, all these issues are interlinked. And when women are unable to have and build assets, it makes it very difficult to start and grow a business that can provide solutions and rethink and rebuild our infrastructure. I'm convinced that if women have more assets, how we build schools, how we build roads with light in the evenings when it is so precarious, how we build things with wheels, like you said, instead of carrying the water on their backs or the wood on their heads, how do we, make sure, I know they know what the problems are. They know what local problems are, but if you don't have assets and you haven't been empowered or exposed to people like you, Janice, who, move from ideas into solutions, and then take risks to diversify. But if they don't know that Janice exists and that this can be done, it's really hard for someone to do something if it doesn't even occur to them to do it and they don't have the assets to make that happen.
And sometimes it's not an individual decision, nor is it simply four of us women getting together or four of us citizens getting together. Sometimes, as you said, it is the access, and WEConnect provides such a platform for access to information, not just access to procurement, but helping people be informed in a way that circularly helps them to understand who their next customer can be or should be. Water in Flint, Michigan was a problem. We're not just talking Africa. Water in Flint, Michigan was a problem and an example of that. And women have been very active in how we are looking at addressing that. Irrespective of politics, women have just been incredible to that, 100%.
And I can say with confidence, even though there has been almost no research done on this, but this concept of ESG, the environment, society, good governance, how corporations and other organizations rethink their role in society. Women who start and grow businesses are incredibly good at ESG. They tend to build into their business models, as well as the solutions they actually provide, but in how they do business, they are, almost without exception, they build things that are sustainable, that do no harm. And I mean, I've met, of all the chemical manufacturers I know that are women owned, they are all clean and green. They are all non-toxic. In how they build and invest in societies, their business models are often based on how to fix societal challenges and problems, but they tend to hire differently. They tend to promote and provide benefits differently. They tend to, in a lot of countries, be less corruptible because they haven't been parts of corrupt systems, and they sometimes to their detriment won't participate in business opportunities if they think that corruption is required. And so I think we need to again, rethink how we do business. And I'm convinced that having more women being a part of starting and growing businesses will help to ensure that we are better on all the different measurements of what we need to be doing to have a healthy planet and a healthy society. And I think you're a perfect example of how you do business. It's baked into your model.
Well, women are a big part of our organization. And speaking from data, they're well over 65% of the organization, but also speaking in terms of innovation, women are in decision-making roles and women are at the table. They're not just serving the table. And I think that's where you have made a big difference in what you do. We talk about women-owned businesses, Elizabeth. We're also talking about people. We're talking about a person. One of the things you do so well is bring a lot of joy with you wherever you are. I talked early in our conversation about seeing you at events, and whenever someone's got a problem, you're that person who will kind of lean in, give a smile, and encourage us to do two things. One, let's decide if this is the problem we're talking about or where the problem is. And two, let's solve together. Nobody's on their own. So much of what you do in the process of leading an organization, I think, can be applied to individuals. Many of our family members listening right now don't run businesses, don't own businesses, are young people who still have to understand that their brand, their individual brand is their business, and how to treat that, and how to live and apply some of the lessons you teach many of your women-owned businesses like me to take to heart and apply in your own personal lives. Let's make it personal. Talk with us about what we can do on the personal level to make sure that we're smiling as you are. You're as aware of what's going on out there as anybody, and a lot closer to it and touching it than most of us, yet you're smiling. How do we do that as individuals? Get personal.
So honestly, I think for me personally, I feel like I don't have a choice, because if you really stop and think of how much suffering there is in the world, it would paralyze me. It would literally paralyze me. And there have been times in my life where I have felt paralyzed, overwhelmed. How do you begin to get up in the morning when there's so much tragedy and there's so many people suffering? And so at some point you have to decide that you're going to use that knowledge to do something about it, to make sure that those around you have a chance to do something about it. And that you don't have to have all the answers and you don't have to fix everything, but you do have to ask others and invite others to help you. And I think that is why you're so effective, is you ask for help, but then you actually also roll up your sleeves and do the work. You don't sit back and wait for others, but you don't try to do it alone. And I think those are really basic, simple things, but that's why you're effective. Is because you get that how things are today are not good enough. It's just simply not good enough. There are so many opportunities that we are we're missing, because sometimes we get comfortable with the way things are, but the way things are not acceptable. They're just simply not acceptable. And we're powerful as individuals. I mean, I keep talking about our purchasing power, but I honestly believe that it is one of the most fundamental ways in which we vote for the world that we want, the communities that we want. How we spend our money says everything about who we are and what we value.
Well, I understand that as a child beneficiary of the civil rights movement and the busing boycott. So while that was how we didn't spend our money, the flip side is equally true. Who we then from, and so many of my family who are listening right now are young people who also are very thoughtful about how companies treat the environment they care about, the people they care about, and the transparency they care about. And they are making decisions to buy, and they are utilizing social media to inform. There is so much chatter that sometimes you have to dig in to get the chat. But COVID didn't make that happen. That was happening well in front of it. And I think it actually gave a platform to people during COVID to be better thoughtful, or to find out that there are other people who think and care as I do, and I can be active even if I'm not there. I can help there. And I think all of that is a part of what you're talking about. Yes?
I think increasingly organizations that are trying to attract and retain talent have to recognize, and are increasingly recognizing, that especially the younger people, they are not going to work for organizations that they don't respect. And we have a level of transparency today that wasn't possible in the past. But if you don't treat your people well, and if you don't treat your suppliers well, and if you're doing things that are causing harm, as opposed to helping people and helping the planet, if you're not doing that, you will not attract new talent, and you're certainly not going to retain. People are looking for purpose. It's not enough to just offer a paycheck. And don't get me wrong, there are plenty of people that will work for a paycheck and just for a paycheck because they have to pay their bills. But that does not mean they're going to stay there. If they can get a paycheck but also do something that is good for themselves and good for their families and good for their communities, they will take that opportunity. It is a major, major factor in how people are deciding where to give their time. And people are starting to recognize how valuable their time is. And that they would, if they have a choice between two opportunities and one of them allows them to do something good in the world, they are going to choose that second option. And so I think you're exactly right. I'm certain that Act One sees it every single day in looking for talent and placing talent, that is a driving factor more and more. And I think that's a good thing for everyone.
And more is important, because more and more will be more and more now that companies have discovered that they can actually work differently. And we will be all going back to a life that we lost a lot of post-COVID, but we're not going to go back to those same disciplines and protocols around where we work. And so there will be new ways for companies to recover or invent a better relationship with their customers and their communities. There will also be requirements on businesses, regardless of what size they are. We talk about companies who offend or support ideas of a population, a customer population. That is in some ways even more immediate and stronger for your supplier companies than for their customers, because they're supplying very often right in the communities they live in, and people will be demanding of things they care about that are outside the product or service they're buying that you engage in, and they'll see it a lot quicker, won't they?
I love the way the organizations we work with are reaching out to their communities to co-create solutions. I mean, it's a really, really an exciting time because technology makes that process efficient in a way that it wasn't possible in the past. So they're not just putting stuff out there, they're inviting their community, especially through their supply chain, to come in and help them anticipate needs and to co-create together. And I think it's also a recognition that most people going forward are not going to be looking for an organization where they can park themselves for 20 years. That is the young people, they just don't assume that's just not at all in anyone's head anymore, that I'm going to get a degree and I'm going to find my job and that's where I'm going to be and I'm going to climb a ladder for the rest of my life at the same organization. I love that everyone is starting to recognize that it's important to give, especially this is true for women, a space to have flexibility in their life where they can step out of a full-time job and move to part-time or leave it for a while and be able to unwrap back on more easily. And
also Elizabeth, right in there, hold that thought. Many people are thinking in terms of doers as well. They are not looking to have a job and then do this. They are thinking of themselves around their cottage industries, their entrepreneurship, while working for you, not working for you to go do that. And so I think that there is an education. I mean, we are at Act One Group, we deliver talent communities to companies, and how you hire today is very different than how you hired 10 years ago. What you look for. Do you remember the days when people would question your stability if you hadn't worked for more than 3 to 5 years within a discipline, not just at a certain company, but within a discipline they were searching? Many times people are hiring you today, 3 to 5 years. If you've not changed, you've not grown, because the technology or the platform language has advanced beyond you. So we're seeing, I've said for a long time, history happens a lot quicker these days, a lot faster these days. But wow, people don't even ask for a 5-year business plan. They want to know what's happening in 18 months, what's happening in 2 years. And so I think the adeptness, the agility, and the connectedness at the local level that many women have can become a huge advantage in putting ourselves forward, whether we're doing that as employees or employers. Yes.
I would hire someone who has started their own business over someone who's never had a business 100% of the time. That doesn't mean everyone who works for me has owned a business. I'm just saying, if I have a choice between 2 candidates and they're equally skilled and they have, a lot to equal amount of value to add, but one of them has owned a business, I will pick the person who has been an entrepreneur. That's someone who's willing to take risks. That's someone who believed in themselves. That's someone who sees that there's a problem and that they can offer a solution to the world. So you're exactly right. This idea that you either get a job or you start a business and you're a business owner is not at all accurately reflecting the reality that everyone is thinking entrepreneurially, and you want entrepreneurs. You want people who go in and out of business ownership, but who have also had, jobs and can work for others and with others. And I think that provides everyone with so much more choice, that, you can have your job, but in the evenings or the weekends, you're putting your stuff up, or my kid, 14, just started their own business. They cleared $1,500 in one day, where people came up at an open market and said, this is fun. This is something I want to pay money for. And it's so rewarding and empowering, because now my kid knows that they're never going to be homeless, right? They now know how to source, how to package, how to promote. I want everyone to encourage their kids to go to a marketplace, and, offer their stuff, learn to take no, learn to get feedback from people. I love the way the world is changing so that people feel they have more choices about what they do. I think it's really empowering.
More choices and more voices.
Exactly. And we're all better off when that happens.
I agree with you so much. You talked about women-owned businesses and smaller businesses being able to pivot quickly and more thoughtfully. I want to pivot our conversation quickly and thoughtfully to you. So you're doing all this stuff. You're leading the charge. How have you taken care of yourself personally through this? I think people can learn from you from that level as well?
Wow, that's a hard question for me, because like everyone, I've found ways to keep the job that I love and innovate, because you have to, you have to rethink what you're doing, and always remember your purpose. For what reason am I doing the work that I'm doing? I have the good fortune to get to do things that I'm passionate about, that I would do, frankly, regardless of pay, because I love it. But I also have a board of directors of corporations that believe in fair compensation and recognition for good work that's being done. And so that allows me to do what I do for my family, my community, but it also ensures that I'm paying and attracting, really fantastic talent. I mean, I only am able to be successful in my work because I have an incredible team around me of people who are passionate about what they do, and they feel like, it's worthy of their time and of their efforts. None of us are able to do what we do except for the people around us who love us and who support us. And so I recognize,
like my Christy P at your organization.
Agreed. I mean, we can't do what we do, Janice, right? If we didn't have just brilliant people all around us, constantly challenging us and anticipating things that we don't see around the corner, but that they do. And so in giving them that space for them to grow and to challenge us, and to constantly expect more and better, and to help us deliver, because we're great on the ideas side. But at the end of the day, you need people who can convert that into actions and doing things on the ground, and scaling what we start. So I do recognize how important it is to have these strong teams, and I've had a hard time. I mean, not gonna lie, finding out that I have diabetes. My mother had diabetes, and deciding I don't want to take insulin. So, having to drop 50 pounds during COVID, when all I wanted to do was eat sweet stuff and do all the things that make you comfortable, especially when you're sitting in a home office, all day long. You can't go to the restaurants that you love. You can't visit, the places that you love, and commune with the people that you care about, and have special meals together. And so there's anxiety and there's pressure. And so for me to focus on my mental and my physical health, probably for the first time in 20 years, because I used to travel just nonstop. And when you travel a lot, there's lots of excuses to not take care of yourself.
I know.
Right? Lots of reasons why you can't take care of yourself: exercise, drink lots of water, eat the right foods. So it really, again, out of tragedy, gave me an opportunity to rethink how I value this vessel that I have been given.
Are you doing well with it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I dropped the 50 pounds. I drink water every day. I actually, focus on 10,000 steps, and the other type of, and you've always taken good care of yourself. I have historically done a horrible job of taking care of myself. And I always use the excuse that I don't have time. I'll do it, someday. And then all of a sudden, I was in a situation that I put myself in where I had to take care of myself. And as a result, I'm better able to take care of others.
And be an example to your daughter.
So my kid, has also been through their own challenges, and they are non-binary, and they go by they, them now. And so that's been a real learning experience for me.
Oh,
yeah.
So tell us, as much as you care to share, as much as they care to share, tell us how that happened for you. I know so many of our family listening right now will be interested, informed, supported, and honestly, a lot better people for knowing from your experience. I forgot. Share with us. Yes.
Yeah. So that was interesting because my kid was in a school environment that was just not at all for them welcoming, and not at all designed for a time of COVID to provide flexibility. And so actually for my kid, being out of that environment and studying from home gave them space to think about who they are, and be more comfortable sharing with me and our family and our community who they are, and who
Had
they
you
are.
had any big conversations before COVID, or was that a gift of COVID?
It was a gift of COVID.
Okay.
And I think part of it was the age, right? It's when they became more self-aware, their body was changing, and just not feeling comfortable being born female, assigned female, but realizing, you know what? I don't really feel that I am female, but that doesn't mean I want to be a guy either. So for them, recognizing that I'm non-binary, meaning I'm comfortable with being neither, and I'm comfortable with being both. But, you know, for them, having they, them pronouns, which is incredibly hard for in a very, you realize how binary our world is. Our world is set up, our societies are set up to pick one. So, you know, you got to pick one. You're either male
Right.
or you're female.
When we know that in life, two things can be true, or more than one thing can be true. When our kids were born, I was blessed enough to live in a place in the United States where it had race on the birth certificate. I was able to put human. And I am very proudly African American and very decidedly African American. Now, there are many races and ethnicities and everything that have fed to me being a Black woman. Okay, so I got the gift and the curse of making that decision and having it made for me various points in my life. Certainly, I understand then and embrace the right of everyone to be able to make decisions in the healthy, supportive environment that we all deserve. For me, it was race, and society decided for me that I was African American, regardless of what my mother and father's genetics said. And you met enough of my family to know, depending on who you look at, you may not think we're all Black, you know. But back to the wholesome discussion you're having, and I say wholesome deliberately because so often these conversations in larger communities, you and I work very closely in cause-based environments. So I think we listen and hear more frequently, sometimes more robustly, these conversations than others will have. And it's such a gift you're bringing to be able to talk about the experience in your own family this way, because it's not always a happy, fun, chummy, nor aseptic conversation. If you know people who, or know of people who are in a position where this conversation can occur, what is some of the advice you give to them, especially so much of my family of listeners who are have a heart around people, but they're not there yet, you know, or they don't believe they want to go there. I don't believe in pushing people. I do believe in good leadership. How would you help people to understand where you are and where you would like to see the world on this discussion?
I would love to see a world that is welcoming of all different backgrounds, all different experiences, and that we embrace the fact that we all come from different backgrounds and have different experiences and different ways of looking at things. I just think it makes it a more fun, more interesting world. And I think when we put ourselves in boxes and we put others in boxes, and we try to define in advance what people are capable of, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do, what's acceptable in the spaces that we're talking about right now. I think it just does everyone a huge disservice. And so what I've learned in the last 6 months on this journey with my kid is that the world is not always very welcoming and not very understanding, and they miss out on having this amazing spirit amongst them, who is now this, powerful entrepreneur, and who can have ideas and wake up in the morning and in the evening they've created, these amazing pieces of art that they can share with the rest of the world to bring some joy to others. And what a tragedy that the vast majority of kids who have that awareness, instead of sharing it, will take their own life. And that is just, devastating to understand the numbers. The suicide rates are really hard to fathom.
So you've always been an aware person, but now you are an engaged person with your child. What are some of the data points that you've learned? I know you've done the work.
Yeah, I mean, the suicide rates for trans kids, non-binary kids, I think it's something like 60% attempted suicides. I mean, it's a mind-boggling statistic that there are so many kids that are raised in communities where they don't feel welcomed and they don't feel that their life is worth living, and that has to stop. It's such a tragedy on so many fronts. The idea that, I may not have been able to enjoy my kid because they didn't feel, if they had not felt loved and supported and respected and welcomed. And I just think that there's so many aspects of diversity, right? This happens to be part of who they are. It doesn't define them. It is a part of who they are. But to not have a welcoming community because you're, something different than what these ideals are supposed to look like is just something that's intolerable for me. And I'm just not willing to be quiet about them. Instead, I want us to be happy that we have so many different backgrounds and people with different experiences, and to just recognize how fortunate we all are to have access to people with different backgrounds and different experiences and different ways of doing things, and that we need to frankly leverage it because it's just gonna make the world a lot more fun.
A lot of people who I have heard address this subject, and I have people who I know and people who I love who come from different places on this conversation. A lot of people believe that that these decisions are made when kids are young and they've been influenced into them, or that they get locked in and can't make changes if we support those decisions in physical or biologically impacting ways. I also heard someone say just last week, Elizabeth, that their child told them, no, I always knew I didn't feel comfortable to talk about it until now. And even now they were not comfortable, but they felt, inspired and required to talk about it. And so I think that that's a frontier that we've got a lot of work to do on. And like you, I will smile at work because I welcome an opportunity to make impactful change. But the statistics and the data that you have, that you share and can share around this, they teach us a lot, don't they?
Yeah, I just feel like we need to do better in being inclusive and to welcome different experiences, different perspectives.
And you know what? I'm so glad you said inclusive this time, because we've been talking in terms of diversity, and I'm always encouraging people, if you're going to have a conversation about diversity, can we also have one about inclusion? And is there any chance we can get those to, at some point in our lives, be that same discussion? Because they definitely are not. You know, years ago, I shared this before, I think even on one of your platforms, I have family from England, and Nana Gracie came here, and she's this little white Yorkshire woman with the biggest heart and, you know, for love in the world, always welcomed me. And loved me preciously. And I took her to an American supermarket because she wanted to go into a supermarket, right? This is years ago. And she walked, and she at first was very impressed with it, and, you know, the color, the layout, and, you know, the selections. But when it came down to making a decision about what we were taking home, she got very frustrated. It became very difficult, and her decisions were difficult. And she asked me at one point, well, do you just have this? And I said, I do think we have that here with all these selections. She said, wow. She said, that's what I'm used to. And I thought, what a great conversation on diversity and inclusion. The story didn't stop there, but the point is made in there. Many times people think that they can celebrate diversity by inviting you to respond to a bid, or inviting you to be a part of something they're putting on. But that's part of the conversation. Inclusion is what was in her basket when she walked out of that store. She had a diverse selection of everything she was looking to shop for. But what she chose to walk out of that store with was her idea of inclusion in that moment. Now, she did make a selection, and she actually loved the selection she made, and she could still cook her Yorkshire food well with it. And she found out that she wanted some to take home, okay, with her, and share it, and let others be able to find out about this product. But so often we make choices in life in that way, and it's not coming from a bad place. I made the point to tell you, Nana Grace is a wonderful cook and a loving person. But when she went into that supermarket, she loved it up front. The idea of all of this was great. But when she had to make a decision about what she was selecting, it got real hard and tempting to leave with nothing. But she was smart and bold enough to step out of her comfort, read the labels, and make a decision around, read the ingredients on the label, not just look at the label, and make a decision. And she walked out proud, and she ended up happy. And I think that's kind of what you're rallying for with people too.
I love being around people that are curious. I love people that try new things. I love that I have so many more choices when I invite others to engage in a conversation or an activity, or building something. It just makes it more fun, and you get better outcomes. I mean, it's a fact. When you have more choice, you have better outcomes. So being ignorant of what's out there and not taking advantage. I mean, if you look at it from what's in it for me perspective, you totally miss out when you're not inclusive, when you don't invite others to share in your needs and in your opportunities. So I think that's really what we've been talking about is
and how we put expectations of and to people. Going back to our children, how we put expectations in front of our children, how we identify their choices they have as very young children based on how we see them before we learn how they see the world and how they see themselves. And whether that's gender, whether that is career, whether that is a choice of being in the band or being being in the band or being on the football team. We oftentimes put expectations on our kids that very young they live up to for us, or they create confusion for them. And I think that expands across the whole diaspora, the whole beautifully kaleidoscopic choice of how we choose to be humans and how we choose to serve humanity.
And I think it's an interesting mix of what you said, that some, I think a lot of parents want their kids to change in some ways and not change in other ways. But when it comes to like the LGBT community, that, oh, maybe this is a phase, right? It's really popular right now for kids to experiment. But at the end of the day, what I'm learning is, these kids, when they sleep at night, they dream about.
And Elizabeth, I think it will be real important, say that as well. I think it will be real important to make the point here that when we're talking gender, we're not just talking about sexual choice. Very often, young people identify their gender before they experience any sexual kind of energy. Is that true?
Exactly. And that's what I love. Like, even the toy manufacturers are starting to recognize they have more customers if they're not trying to force half the population to buy only one set of things and the other half of the population to buy the other set of things. That the kids have more choice when it's not gender specific. They have more customers trying different things and experimenting with tractors and dolls and everything in between. And we build a better society that thinks more broadly about the toys that could be created, not just for kids, but all the things that we love to do as an adult, and we don't limit ourselves because of what we've been told we're allowed to do or not allowed to do. And that actually impacts career choices. When, back in the day when women had the choice of either being a secretary or a nurse or a teacher, those are false choices when we're perfectly capable of doing
choices, but they're not the collective.
Wonderful choices. And, women, especially in the care economy, are just, whether it's because for whatever sets of reasons, we're really good in the care economy. And so we want to continue to be strong in the care economy, but we also want opportunities to be strong in manufacturing and things that require physical labor, which there are actually.
Now you're getting into my neck of the woods, because I am all about women in STEM.
Yeah, well, and I was just, in working with different extractives industry sectors, that a lot of the corporations we work with, where there's laws in countries that say that women are not allowed to work in certain sectors, and that's because of what has to be lifted. But now with technology, anyone can work these forklifts, and it turns out women are actually better employees in a lot of these precarious sectors where heavy machinery is required, because women are really good on the precision, and they show up and they're able to focus, and there are issues with safety concerns that women are highly attuned to those things, and making sure that they're frankly sober. And no, honestly, I mean, and it's not that men show up drunk and they're not able to pay attention
mind, body, and spirit.
Exactly. So I just think opening up all these opportunities and having guys in sectors where they typically didn't show up. We have so many amazing men nurses, for example, that provide such wonderful care, but giving everyone an opportunity to do what it is they love and that they're really good at, regardless of their ethnicity or physical or mental abilities or gender assignments. I think it will just make it better for everyone.
Someone I love dearly shared with me that World War II brought women into new areas of opportunity, responsibility, and conversation. And we all have our Rosie the Riveter pictures somewhere, right? And we pull them out from time to time and look at them if we've not kept them present to us. But what Gender She said to me was, World War II brought women out, but you don't have to have a war to have a revolution. And COVID and the economy and the social justice issues that have all hit us in the face out loud right now give us opportunity for revolution without war. We can all work together on this. Elizabeth, when I think of you, I think of revolution in the absence of war. And I am just so thrilled and educated and hugged and inspired every time I'm in your presence. And I got to do 4 for 4 with you right now. And I'm just so excited about it. In the spirit of our conversation, please know you can go more than 4. You can't go less than 4. Okay? So here's your first question in 4 for 4. You get to invite 4 people to dinner from any period in history, live or transcended. Who do you invite to dinner?
Oh my goodness. Oh wow. First and foremost, I would love to have you there with me. So I would love to have Mahatma Gandhi. I would love to have.
And you have to say why. So you can. I'll be there and I'll help you serve that dinner. Give me 4 other people and tell me why. Although I'm curious why you want me there too, girl. I think I know, and I'm not turning down my invitation.
No, I think we would have a lot of fun learning from these people, and to think of reinvent how we do things. Literally, like how do we win hearts and minds to fundamentally change our systems? And
you got Mahatma Gandhi.
Yeah, so definitely for I think obvious reasons, right? And be the change you want to be. So if you don't like the way things are, let's make sure that you're not waiting around for someone else to fix stuff, but you got to fix it yourself. I think I would actually love to have Christine Lagarde. She's just a rock star who understands big systems and how to change them and fight for what you believe in for inclusion as you do the business that needs to be done. And so she would be amazing. And then I would love to have the Buddha. I think that there's a lot to be said for.
I'm not sure if on my podcast the Buddha has been invited before. I'm going to have to go back and check. Why is Buddha coming to our dinner?
Being reminded of being present, of being centered, of being mindful, of being kind, of happiness, of joy. All of those things are challenges for me. Being present is just very, very difficult. So I think there are just some real simple, basic, critical life lessons that he has shared with all of us in passing down his story over time. I would really enjoy the historic lessons to be learned with modern day challenges and opportunities. And I think that a conversation with all 4 of you would be so enlightening as an opportunity to.
Wow, you got me at dinner with these incredible people. What an honor. Oh wow, what a responsibility to live up to that invitation. Hey, Elizabeth, 4 things you're reading right now that you care to share with our family listening.
That's a good question. So a lot of how I learn in the world is actually being in the world. So what I read is more in the news, snippets from all over, different types of publications that come out daily, because there's just so much happening on a day-to-day basis, especially.
You're reading it electronic or print?
Yeah, it's all electronic,
Digital.
and it's all real time. And it's about, what's happening in the moment, but also what's coming. And a lot of that I'm not reading stuff to look backwards. I'm reading stuff to understand the moment and what's happening going forward. And usually, it's not that it's out of date, because there are a lot of old things that are always current, but it's more sources of future forward, real-time action oriented, of what leaders are doing to think about the future, whether it's what's happening with Tesla, or what's happening in economic development, with some of the top leaders in the development space. Those are the kinds of things that I'm focused on, and usually I'm traveling a lot, so I want to see it, right? I want to be a part of it. I want to smell, taste, feel it, as opposed to reading about it. But that has been the hardest thing for me. One of the hardest things with COVID is needing to experience everything virtually, and not experiencing it and touching it myself.
Are there any particular news sources that you like, that you got to run to as soon as you brush your teeth?
Yeah, certainly one of the first things, what's happening with the BBC, but then I'm also looking at local news sources of what's happening in India, local sources of what's happening in Africa. There's a lot of great publications out of South Africa, for example. There are great publications in Asia of what's happening there. I love to see what companies like Amazon and Alibaba, what is it that everyone is looking for, what are they searching for solutions to problems. Weird sources, diverse sources.
Oh, no. Years ago, back when the Staples Center first opened in Los Angeles, that's many years we're talking, and I was in my suite and Dick Gregory walked in accidentally, but there are no accidents, right? He had all these newspapers, and I was looking at them, and they were from, what we might call opposing viewpoints. And I was like, wow, and he told me, he said, it's very important. I shared with him that I travel a lot. And back then we used to pick up newspapers when we would have stopovers. Remember those days? And he told me he thought it would be very important for me to not just read from one side of the press. He said, read from the other side, and very often you'll find the truth somewhere in there, and he said that is how he stayed informed, was to not limit himself to go where he already was, but to challenge himself to find out where other people were on matters. And he said that's how he thought he was able to evolve. That's also how he got to the place of his diet and adjusting himself as well, and weight loss. So yeah, you remind me of Dick Gregory on that point, Then he got up and went over to Magic Johnson's suite, but
but I especially love that, because you also, when you do that, often the news is talking about the same or similar topics, but from a totally different perspective. And you're exactly right. He was exactly right. You start to figure out what truth is, because you're getting all these different data points about the same thing, but totally different on it.
Yeah, and another good thing about that is, yesterday, Pastor was saying, it's real good to be able to understand how someone else speaks. And he was using the conversation around Peter and Paul, and he was saying Paul was sent in to talk with the Greeks because he understood the language. He could speak the language. It wasn't because he was any better informed or better than Peter, but he could speak the language. I pray I got Pastor right on that. But the point was, and I didn't flip the disciples, but the point he was making was that, we are best tooled to do certain things when we understand who we're serving to, not just what we're serving from. And I think Dick Gregory saw that if I want to share an opinion, there's value in me learning someone else's opinion. There's also a gift in my sharing my opinion if I understand their language and where they are. So, you know, it becomes a circle instead of that box you're talking about that we put people in. So yeah, I love that you're going to your devices and you're being able to read in the current, so you can think about where people are thinking toward. I love that, and I think that's a very good tip for all of our family who are listening. They've been shared many books, many great books that they should read. So I'm glad with that if that's where you're leaving it. 4 things you're listening to. Now, typically that is artists and music, but some people have shared particular podcasts or, you know, shows that they're watching that they think have relevance to the moment. So go for the 4. We're totally inclusive.
So it's interesting because I'm spending so much more time with my kid. A lot of music that's very popular on TikTok. So actually, I'm finding a lot of that content fascinating and sourced from all different perspectives from all over the world. So there's a lot of new music. A lot of it I don't like. It's very harsh. And I
Are there
don't
any
enjoy
particular artists? Because we build playlists from what you share.
I mean, a lot of it's very poetic. I mean, but it's not someone you would expect, a Billie Eilish of the world, you know. It's just, I just, you know, what she's able to do in very unconventional ways to tell stories. I just think it's a lot of fun.
I think she was in the news this morning for what she's doing in Europe right now.
Yeah, I feel like she really challenges a lot of assumptions about everything from body image to the role of a young female artist in the world. And I think I see how especially young people react to the messages that she shares about just being yourself and having fun, but also just being very critical of a lot of the assumptions of the role that they're supposed to be playing. Everything about it, I think is fun and I love it.
So but then Billie Eilish is one. Who else?
And then you have other stuff that is old, but I'm just loving some of the stuff that I'm blanking out on her name. Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
Just some of the basics that are just, you know, truths that, you know, you can't get away from. And then I'm listening to some podcasts that have come out of some friends doing work on women's economic empowerment from Seneca Global, and they're coming up with a whole series of podcasts. One of them is on women's business ownership, but there are a series of them, and they're doing it with XM, and it's just, you know, very inspiring to tell their stories. And then there's, I mean, I tend to listen to a lot of the things that are coming out on the economic development space. So they have, you know, annual general meetings that the World Bank convenes. And so listening to all of those different presentations to get to hear from policymakers about what is it they're doing to change the economy so that it helps their people. So listening to a lot on the policy wonk side.
I love that. Oh my goodness. Well, we're coming to 4 for 4. 4 pieces of advice that have been shared with you that you want to share forward right here, right now.
Ooh, be brave. Love with all your heart.
2.
Listen.
3.
Take action.
4. Wow. You are all of that, and you are an example and an instruction to us on how we can be that too. I just love you so, so much. We are now going to share forward all of the companies that comprise membership as women-owned businesses in WEConnect. And we're doing this because Elizabeth Vazquez is an incredible leader along with Michael, and they are just gifting to the world. It's my dream that you and I can hug each other in person very soon. The reality is that you hug me every day by your example, and I am so, so honored that you've been a guest here. Is there anything else you want to say right now in this moment beyond that?
Janice, I know how fortunate I am to get to have you as my friend. I think of you every day, and I am always inspired by how you give back. The fact that you, after running all of these businesses and supporting, I don't know how many different organizations, the generosity of spirit, of how you don't just talk about creating a better world, you are actively out there building a better world. And the fact that you spend an hour talking with me, you have access to all the world's leaders. They're all listening to you and looking for advice and guidance in the public sector and private sector, and being a role model, because so often we have these incredible role models, but they don't slow down to share their stories. And so the fact that you spend your time doing things like this to give others access to knowledge and networks that they can take advantage of is, I just have nothing but gratitude. I so appreciate being included in a conversation with you. And I am very much looking forward to a day when we can hang out and celebrate what we were all able to do during this time of challenge.
So, I mean, yours is the only conference out there of its scale that has people from all over the world coming dressed however they want to be represented. And it's always, I think people talk about fashion statements, it's always the best statement when I see your guest all dressed however they feel, representative of so many cultures and so much hope and so much confidence and so much inclusion. Elizabeth, it's been a joy, and from my heart to your home, I wish you love.
Thank you. I love you very much, Janice. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your community.